the way in which Loma is out gives us every credence to want to give him a shot. When we are successful with Kambosos, is then to give Lomachenko a shot based on our empathy for the.
You're willing to offer him a fight
after.
Why, Bill? So there's no rush. So there's no rush out of the division.
It's just something that kind of just doesn't sit.
But that offer wouldn't supersede a Gervonta Davis fight, right?
Like I said, it's touchy, man.
Breaking news, Vasyl Lomachenko tells Devin Haney, quote, "I'm next," end of the quote. As Devin Haney and Vasyl Lomachenko have already agreed to fight each other after Devin Haney unifies with George Kambosos for Undisputed. For the people that's not informed, Devin Haney had to make sacrifices in order to make history and fight for legacy, which is supposed to be the other way around. When a fighter fights for legacy, it's supposed to be the biggest money fight on the table, like Caleb did with Canelo for Undisputed, like Canelo had with Benavidez and Charlo, where he received $100 million deal for 2 fights plus pay-per-view. However, clearly fighters on the coincidental list have to play by different rules, where Devin Haney had to sign a multi-fight deal with ESPN. That includes 2 fights with George Kambosos in Australia and a Lomachenko fight. Now, despite Devin Haney signing a multi-fight deal with ESPN, they still gave him a huge pay cut, where Devin Haney had to accept receiving less money to unify against George Kambosos for Undisputed than he made against Jojo and even Linares, which makes no business sense since Haney versus Kambosos is one of the biggest fights this year. But that's what Devin Haney had to sacrifice in order to make the dream become a reality. Devin also had to accept a rematch clause in Australia after Kambosos said that he would not request a rematch clause.
There be a rematch in your fight clause or not?
Rematch clause for when I destroy Devin Haney? No chance.
Yes. Okay.
What's a rematch clause needed for his belt, his toy? That's definitely not needed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care about all that stuff. I'm focused on getting rid of this guy, getting rid of this kid, and after that, we move on to the next.
However, we know Kambosos is not a man of his word. To make matters worse, even if Devin Haney knocks out George Kambosos in Australia to become undisputed, he still has to give Kambosos the lion's share of the money. Kambosos is still the A side. Despite if Devin Haney beats him and has all of the belts, he still has to take less money in the rematch, which is bogus. Then after Devin Haney whoops George Kambosos twice for the culture in his own country, Devin Haney agreed to fight Vasyl Lomachenko right after that. Put some respect on the A-class boogeyman, Devin Haney's name. You can hate him or love him, but you have to respect him. This type of behavior demands respect. This is what we need in the sport of boxing. This is what we have been missing in the sport of boxing. Old school type of fighters that push for the best versus the best every single time. Nevertheless, if you may wonder, since Devin Haney is a free agent and had to sign a multi-fight deal just to get Kambosos in the ring, then why the heck did Devin Haney have to take a pay cut when this is the biggest fight in the lightweight division? It's one of the biggest fights in boxing period this year. It's the undisputed Super Bowl bout in the lightweight division. Well, the reason why Devin Haney had to take a pay cut is because all of the money went toward George Kambosos. George Kambosos used Devin Haney and his free agent status to leverage more money from ESPN, where he structured a deal to get Devin Haney signed to ESPN so he can get more money from ESPN. So essentially, the ultimate diva in boxing, George Kambosos, used Devin Haney's name to sign him to ESPN in order to get more money so he can go ahead and retire. This is pretty much Kambosos' retirement fight. This is Jack Johnson versus Tommy Burns all over again, 100 years later. Remember, the Australian Tommy Burns didn't want any part of Jack Johnson, just like the Australian Kambosos wanted no part of Devin Haney. Kambosos was forced into this position. just like Jojo Diaz's fight. Remember when Ryan pulled out of the Jojo fight, so Jojo was forced to fight Devin Haney? Well, the same thing happened to Kambosos. He wanted to fight Lomachenko, but Lomachenko turned down the fight due to the war in his country. Now he was forced to fight Devin Haney, but only under the Tommy Burns condition. Kambosos wanted to be set for life, so he can go ahead and retire if Devin Haney ends his career. Furthermore, it's amazing how Allah plans work. We say subhanallah to that. First, Devin Haney as Lomachenko mandatory. When Devin was only 20 years old, he challenged the so-called pound-for-pound #1 Lomachenko at the time, back when old media and ESPN was erasing his losses and promoting him as undefeated. Devin Haney was denied his chance at greatness that he earned, all because old media did not want to see another Floyd Mayweather emerge. Old media main agenda is to stop another Floyd Mayweather from emerging. And when I say Floyd Mayweather, I mean a fighter with his complexion such as Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sweet Pea Whitaker, Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, Jack Johnson, so on and so forth. You get the picture here. That's why they discredited Shakur and Devin Haney already. When you see old media not rank them as top 3 fighters in their divisions, which this is what old media has been doing to Terrence Crawford for the past decade in boxing. However, it's too late now because Shakur got the Oscar Valdez fight, who old media ranked as #1 at 130 pounds, and Devin Haney got Kambosos and Lomachenko in the ring, who old media ranks as #1 at the lightweight division, and obviously Loma, who old media still ranks top 5 pound-for-pound fighter today, and he has been promoted as pound-for-pound #1 for the longest in the past. So all of this time old media has been hyping up these fighters on the hope list is now going to backfire, because now they have to face the fighters on the coincidental list. It's all part of Allah's plan. Allah works in mysterious ways. Picture this. After old media tried to blacklist Devin Haney, when Lomachenko was stripped of his WBC world title for turning down a fight with his mandatory Devin Haney. So basically, Devin Haney won his world title the exact same way the last undisputed heavyweight champion, Lennox Lewis, won his WBC title. But unlike Riddick Bowe, since Lomachenko has the complexion for the connection to get the ultimate protection, they gave Lomachenko the NBF Witness Protection franchise in order to save face for ducking Devin Haney. Then ESPN promoted the most disputed champions of all time, Teofimo Lopez and Kambosos, as undisputed, just like ESPN promoted Lomachenko as undefeated. All of this was done for a single cause, so they all didn't have to fight the dream, Devin Haney, because they did not want the dream to become a reality. That dream is a nightmare to old media because they do not want to see another Floyd Mayweather emerge, which is why after this is all said and done, now that Devin Haney made the ultimate sacrifices in order to get to this position, now that Devin Haney has the Lomachenko and Kambosos fights for undisputed, the real undisputed, the only undisputed champion since Pernell Whitaker. Essentially, Devin Haney has the world in his hands. So if he captures the moment by defeating both Kambosos and Lomachenko convincingly, where they can't rob him, then the sky's the limit. Devin Haney will be the man to see. Gervonta and Ryan Garcia will have to come see Devin Haney at his own terms. So I encourage every single boxer, especially the fighters on the coincidental list, to take notes from Devin Haney. How to make sacrifices the exact same way Floyd Mayweather, Jack Johnson, and Devin Haney did in order to get to a certain position. After all, Devin Haney is the youngest world champion, the longest reigning lightweight world champion, the youngest promoter in boxing, and the richest youngest boxer in boxing. How did Devin Haney accomplish all of the above? Is because he made the right moves and sacrifices in order to get to his position, as he's still making sacrifices till this day while he's dealing with double standards and corruption. However, he never let that discourage him from accomplishing his dream of greatness, In fact, that made him stronger, which is why all of these other boxers needs to take notes. With the facts being laid out, drop your thoughts in the comment section below, subscribe below, and click on the notification bell to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, Akhi TV. Peace, and I'm on to the next one.
Loma was the franchise champion. That's a way that the WBC has of stripping a guy without really stripping him. But then the regular champion is considered a notch below the franchise champion. But you say because you have that belt, you're disputing his Teo's claim to the title?
No, the franchise title is a way to duck your mandatory. I have mandatories. I'm the WBC champion, and I have mandatories. When I was his mandatory, he petitioned to become a franchise champion to where he didn't have any mandatories. Devin Haney has mandatories. The franchise title is for ducks.
A franchise champion means you didn't have to fight your mandatory. That's a duck. So Devin collects the belt because what else is he supposed to do?
So when you say, you can't say Teofimo has all the belts, or Teofimo's undisputed, or Teofimo is the champion in the lightweight division, because there's still one more belt. He has a franchise title. I'm the WBC world champion.
Do you believe at 20 years old you're ready for that type of challenge?
I think you said his name wrong. It's Lomachenko, because he doesn't want to fight me. But it's I feel like I'm ready for the fight. This is the WBC mandatory. So Lomachenko, come on, man, let's get this fight going.
A lot of guys have said they want Lomachenko. You're the next on that list.
Lomachenko.
My mistake.
I chased Tommy Burns around the world in order to get him into the ring with me. It was a 2-year job. I took on every potential contender between myself and the champion. I virtually had to mow my way to Burns. Always he made excuses. And he openly insulted me by uttering unprintable remarks and calling me yellow.
Rather than face Jack Johnson, the champion Tommy Burns took on a series of white challengers. He fought and knocked out one man 3 different times, while continuing to tell reporters, all coons are yellow. But Johnson refused to be ignored. Everywhere Burns went, San Francisco to New York, New York to Paris, Paris to London, Johnson went too. Burns had run out of excuses. He accepted the $30,000, plus the lion's share of the proceeds that would come from showing movies of the contest. John L. Sullivan was livid. Shame on Burns, he said, for upsetting good American precedent. Johnson was to be paid just $5,000. But he'd gotten his chance.